Good afternoon, everybody. 12 o'clock, so I can say good afternoon. We're thrilled to have so many of you today on the call and really looking forward to speaking to Andy Gullick, who's with us today from Rift Enterprises. But before we start, I just thought I'd just give a very quick reminder of what we do at the Four for those of you who aren't as familiar with our practices. So at the Four, we are turbocharging exceptional charities and social enterprises that are transforming lives in society. And Rift is very definitely an example of this, as you will find out a bit more in a minute. But why do we do this? And what do we do? So what this practice is, we are sharing funding and skill support with really, really inspiring leaders who are running charities that are making a big difference and have often got new solutions to very old and entrenched problems. And the reason why we do it and the way that we do it is because there is basically nobody else out there who is offering the sort of support that we offer. It's unrestricted funding, and we offer it in with an investment mindset. So the idea is that we're getting alongside the charities and social enterprises we work with rather than just buying outcomes from them, which is a lot of what funding ends up doing. We are saying, look, we believe in your mission and we want to help you and back you in taking that mission further. Our ambition as an organisation is in the next 5 years, we would like to try and charge 1,000 additional young charities and social enterprises. That is our target. We are very keen to bring alongside more partners to help us do that. That means partnerships which bring both sharing funding and also skills and resources. So we work with businesses, we work with trusts and foundations, and we give people access to a pipeline of exceptionally high quality charities that they otherwise probably would find it very difficult to meet. There are 167,000 charities in the charity sector. 95% of them, 94% of them, I think, are small. And therefore it's very difficult to find the good ones. But we have a process that we are pretty, we've got some really strong evidence on how good it is, and our charities on average double their income in the 3 years after the grant, which is very impressive. So I will now introduce you to Andy from Rift. Thank you so much for joining us today. Rift is an award-winning social enterprise that was set up a number of years ago Andy will give you a few more details on this in a minute, but is now working with people who have experienced the criminal justice system, who are coming out of prison, and helping them to set up as businesses, set up as independent, self-employed businesses. Rift is doing a fantastic job and has fantastic results, but it actually started out in something slightly different. Andy, could you tell us a bit about why did you set up Rift and what was the original problem that you're trying to solve, and what is it that you do? Give us a few more details on exactly what it is you do now.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about Rift Social Enterprise. We, as you've mentioned, are a not-for-profit social enterprise set up about 5.5 years ago, and we support people with convictions, so prison leavers and people on probation or some sort of community order, and also the long-term employed with establishing their own business. So we support people who wish to become self-employed. And we do that by offering a tailored 12-month support program around the individual, where they're allocated their own business startup advisor, who's a bit of a one-stop shop expert, all things self-employment related. And then we have lots of additionality wrapped around that, such as an e-learning platform, partners with various agencies, regular webinars, and a tax specialist in the team who does all the boring HMRC tax regulation stuff for the people that we support.
And so why did you set up Rift?
Why did it?
Background? Yeah.
There's a really interesting story behind why, because that would suggest that there was a deliberate intention and I'd recognised a need, and therefore I went and tried to solve whatever problem was going on. The reality is something completely different. I'd worked in the criminal justice sector most of my career, in the probation service and as a prison governor role in 3 different prisons. And at the time when I set up Rift, I was actually chief exec of a children's charity in Nottingham that was really struggling. We were going through liquidation. And then it was a chance meeting with somebody in a pub on Christmas Day who I sat next to their family and they were sat next to my family, and we got talking. What do you do? What do you do? And the person I was talking to was the founder and owner of an organisation called Rift Group, who undertake tax refunds for construction workers and ex-military. But the owner had been volunteering in a prison, giving tax advice to prisoners. And I said, oh, I used to work in the prison service. So we exchanged numbers. Over the next few months, exchanged a few emails, and must give her a big shout out. Jan Post, out of the blue one day, she sent me an email saying, how would you like to come and work for Rift? We'd like to support people in prison. And because I knew the charity was winding down and I'd already started looking at other options, I said, okay, well, on the condition that you set it up as a not-for-profit and as an independent organisation, because I'm not interested in making money out of other people's hardships, then let's give it a go. So I had a 12-month contract, blank piece of paper. All I was told was go and see if you can get tax refunds for people in prison. And that's how it started. And with the support of the four, we were able to make a success of it and then completely pivot it, which is another story. So,
but why? Tell us more about why what you were doing was needed.
Originally, we focused on getting tax refunds for prisoners because if somebody had been in employment before they went into prison, they would have overpaid tax. It's really complicated, and I still find it really dull talking about tax. But HMRC takes tax through your tax code every month, and it's the same amount every month. But if you go into prison halfway through a tax year, you've overpaid what they expect you to pay over the year, so you're entitled to some of that back. Now, we found that money could come in really useful for people in prison to impact positively on their resettlement plans. So we set up this scheme where we would go and introduce this tax refund service to prisoners and give them some money in their pockets so that when they came out, they could be supported and reduce reoffending. And when we finished the tax refund side of it, we'd actually managed to reclaim almost £300,000 for prisoners across the country. And it was a huge success, but then COVID hit and we had to change our plans.
So tell us a bit more about what happened when COVID hit and what you were doing then has sort of grown into what you're doing now.
Well, the scheme back then, the tax refund scheme, and also with the support of the four, we had some grant funding to support people with general HMRC health checks and appealing penalties and all of that kind of HMRC technical stuff. But it was very much reliant on me going into prisons, training trusted prisoners to do the kind of filtering and the assessment on our behalf. And then almost overnight, COVID meant that we weren't allowed to go into prisons anymore. So you can imagine I'm sat there, we're about 2 years into the social enterprise. We've got, I think, 2 members of staff in the organisation, and all of a sudden we've got no business because we can't go and train anymore. And what was really interesting was that time, I think, was the first time in about 2 years that I'd actually been forced to reflect and think and strategize, something I've never really been that good at. And I knew that there was a huge demand for self-employment support for people in prison. There was very little available that I was aware of. And we did a bit of research and found that at least 20% of the current prison population had been self-employed before coming into prison. And a similar number were interested in being self-employed when they came out. So quite radically, we decided to pivot our whole service and offer remote self-employment support to people in prison. We managed to get a bit of grant funding on the back of COVID. There were a few grant opportunities going out that we were able to tap into. And we were able to prove the concept in a couple of prisons. We supported about 20 male prisoners who were interested in self-employment, supported them remotely in prison via the phone, letters, video calls, sending them resources in. And then we supported them on release. And our model is that we'll support them for 12 months on release. And it was so successful, it attracted interest, and we managed to get a bit more funding, to the point where, if you fast forward now, about 5.5 years later, we're now in 46 prisons. And we've also, in the last year, expanded out to what's called the DWP Restart Programme. So we support people who've been long-term unemployed who are interested in self-employment as well. So there's still that little bit of tax HMRC needed as part of the self-employment, but in terms of service delivery, it was almost a complete pivot from tax refunds to self-employment.
And so, I mean, it sounds like you sort of expanded the service enormously. And what can you give us a few statistics on, how many people are you working with, the changes that they are able to create in their lives, reduced rates of reoffending? Just, show off a bit about the difference. You really are doing an amazing job.
Well, we can now proudly say that we're the largest provider of self-employment support to people with convictions in the UK, because we're in 46 prisons and a similar number of probation areas. So far this year, what are we on now, September, we've supported about 1,500 people into self-employment. The first year that we provided the self-employment support, I think the number was 22. So you can see how quickly that scaled. Additionally, when we ended the tax refund service and moved to self-employment, there were 2 members of staff. There was me and a kind of self-employment tax specialist. We're now a team of 13 full-time employees. We have a trustee, Lord Hastings of Scarisbrick. So we've got a well-renowned Lord who believes in us and invests his time and his energy into us. And ultimately, as a not-for-profit, we're doing this for the right reasons, and we're doing it for the impact it has on those individuals, and particularly for people with convictions that sometimes struggle because they may have to declare a previous conviction, or they may struggle because they don't have the history, the background checks, the bank accounts, things that you'd need to go into PAYE. Self-employment can be a really viable option for them on release. So yeah, it's having an impact not just on them, but on their families and also on their local communities.
And I mean, talk a bit more about, you've got such experience of working with people who've been in prison. Why self-employed, the opportunity to be self-employed is so important. I mean, I'm assuming there's also a lot with, so many people who have been in the prison system have been in the care system, and, the idea they're not sitting in hierarchies doesn't necessarily come easily to them, because they've had lives that have been very chaotic. They're not very trusting, understandably, of authority, because authority in the establishment has let them down so much. So yeah, I mean, have you got any particular stories, or tell us about an individual that you've worked with where self-employment really has been a fantastic opportunity for them to be able to support themselves in a way otherwise they've struggled?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's so many background issues as to why somebody ends up in prison. People tend to think that you're either mad or bad, as they say, which is why you're in prison. But there's a huge likelihood that you've been excluded from school, you've had parental separation, you've been in the care system, you've got mental health issues. All of those things add up to, a cohort of people in prison that would really benefit from that additional support. I know it sounds a bit odd, but a lot of people in prison are naturally entrepreneurial. You can imagine how much skill it takes to run a drugs racket, for example. You've got staff, if you like, that you employ. You've got money coming in, money coming out. You've got services that you need to supply. There's some really astute people in prison that, if they can use that talent to their benefit and to the benefit of the community, that they go far. So we've worked with so many people that are able to harness that entrepreneurial idea, and we can turn it into a reality, from, your dog trainers, your landscape gardeners, which are really, really popular. Really random business ideas. There's one guy that has created a a cream for men that is specifically for pock marks that some men can get on their buttocks. So he's created a cream that's really, really popular. One of our big success stories, there's a guy who lives on a narrowboat in London, and he started selling dog treats from the narrowboat, and he wanted to turn it into a profitable business. So now, with our support, he's almost got a floating shop, and he goes to different parts of the River Thames, moors up, and he has this floating healthy dog treat shop for dog walkers that walk past, and he's got a really kind of cult Insta following. So there's just so many weird and wacky and wonderful ideas. And as well as just enabling them to earn some money, those softer outcomes, the impact it has on their mental health, on their family and their relationships, and the fact that it reduces the risk of them coming back into prison because they're doing something meaningful and purposeful.
Yeah, and earning a living, being able to support themselves is it's fantastic. In terms of the challenges of what you're doing and running a social enterprise, talk a bit about that. I mean, there is such high instance of burnout of charity CEOs at the moment. It is, you are expected to be able to do everything and do it all brilliantly on no budget, and with what you're doing, working with contracts with prisons, and you're dealing with DWP. So tell us about some of the things that are really tough at the moment. What's keeping you awake at night?
Where do you start? And I'm sure there's people watching this that can really resonate. It's a very lonely existence being CEO of a charity or a not-for-profit. The biggest challenge for us was just that huge scale up that we had when we pivoted to do self-employment. We weren't expecting the demand for it that there was. And I remember Jan, who was the reason why the social enterprise exists in the first place. She always said to me, win the contracts first and then worry how you're going to supply and deliver on the contracts afterwards, because it's a nice problem to have. And that's what we ended up doing. Someone said it's almost like you're building the ship whilst you're afloat already. So you're having to tread water and find your way through that mire of difficult challenges as you're delivering a service. Various things. When you start social enterprise, you're not going to get contracts straight away because you don't have that track record. You don't have the 2 years of audited accounts that everyone needs. So very reliant on grant funding. I hate writing bid applications. I'm not very good at it. And I had a terrible success rate with the ones I did. So that was a huge challenge, because if you're not good at something and you don't enjoy it, but you've got no money to actually pay somebody to do it, where do you go with that? Which is where I think the 4 were brilliant, which hopefully we can touch upon that application process in due course. So that was really difficult. I think with COVID, that changed things positively for us in terms of it gave us that new opportunity, but we also were then forced to work remotely. So now I have a team of 13 of us that all work remotely. We've got staff in Scotland, Manchester, Kent, London, Bristol. It's difficult to create a culture and sustain that culture when everybody's so far away. Although we've managed to do it, and we've got an awesome team. Everybody gets on with everybody else. We meet up face to face a few times a year, so that works. But then I think you've got the bigger challenges of the contracts themselves. When those opportunities come, yes, I've mentioned about the difficulty of writing bids and being a bid writer, but as a small not-for-profit, that challenge you have with the big guns that are out there, the big commercial entities that can just get a team of bid writers together at short notice and put forward those bids. We've got the social value element on our side, because obviously the big primes that are bidding for contracts, they love a bit of social value. But I learned the hard way, and I won't name names, but there was one big prime that really kind of took me in and used us in their bid, and it was all very exciting.
Bid candy is what
Bid candy,
yeah.
And they won the bid, and we've received 2 referrals since they won the bid. So I'm now in a position at the moment with some other opportunities where I find myself almost uncomfortably saying, we want exclusivity and we want minimum contract value. And it's okay if you say no, we won't mind. But, you know, I'm trying to put this front on.
But I think that's a really standard problem in our sector, is that people who set up social enterprises and charities are doing it for the social good. And, you know, we're not naturally really kind of people who are like, no, I want this, I want that. We're trying to help people, so it doesn't come naturally to
it doesn't.
in situations like that. But yeah, I mean, we hear that from a number of people we support. This whole bid candy thing, you have to be really tough, because otherwise you get eaten for breakfast. Because, you know, these huge businesses, or even some of them are huge charities, but they are out for themselves. And
yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And the other thing with the bids, if there's a big bid going on and there's a number of primes that are bidding and they talk to us about including us in the bid, why has nobody stipulated there needs to be just a standardized expression of interest form? Every company asks different questions. And again, when you're small and it all falls on my shoulders, I've got to think of a different interpretation for the same question, and some of them are
that's the same with grant writing. It's the same questions phrased in different ways that
And you can't just pick off the shelf one answer. Everybody requires a different answer, and they want it by tomorrow. And it's really tough. It is.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you had, I mean, who is ultimately responsible for that? Is it the government departments that are asking and when you say primes, you mean, I'm assuming you mean people like the big service delivery, like Capita and people. They, you know, could the people who are ultimately going to be awarding contracts, i.e. the government departments, could they help stipulate how these are done that would help you? I mean, is that, as I mentioned to you just before we started on this call, I'm speaking to a whole load of civil servants next week. How could I educate them in how to help people like you when you are? What can I say to them that would make a big difference?
I think I come back to that notional idea of standardizing the process. Every prime has their own form, their own expectations. There was an example last week where we're involved with a number of organisations that are bidding for quite a big contract, and as well as completing so many different expressions of interest, one of them sent me an email and said, we need to populate an answer for your service delivery and what this is going to look like in our bid. So you've got 250 words. Can you write our bid for us? And it's like, no, isn't that your job? So, you know, I don't know what the answer to that is, and I'm not sure that will ever change, because different primes will have different bid teams that require different elements depending on how they're going to shape their bid and what that bid's going to look like. But it's so time consuming, and
I wonder if actually it's something that we might be able to do is just, you know, from within our portfolio of, you know, we've now got 550 odd almost charities in our portfolio. We could see if any of you might want to get together to have a sort of sharing session on what to do and what not to do, and learning from each other about that. Might be something, how to deal with primes and how to did do a session on that, but maybe we'll look into that separately. But you very kindly mentioned about our process and how it helped. I'd love for you to expand a little bit more on what we are. So, you know, we do have other grant makers that set these sessions. What was it that you felt was positive about the way that we are offering grants and getting people to apply that really helped you as somebody who was new to this world to navigate the process?
It was the first grant application that I was ever successful with at the start of the social enterprise, so I will always hold the 4 very close to my heart, because I'm not sure we'd be where we were now if it wasn't for the 4 believing in me. And you've got to also remember that the context and the background to my application to the 4, which was, we want to focus on tax refunds for prisoners. Not the most exciting and engaging topic, is it? But the 4 saw something in it that, you know, even I questioned at times. But what was so liberating and so refreshing was and I don't know if it's still the case now, because this was maybe 4 years ago, the application process, it just said, no more than 3 sides of paper, tell us what you want. No parameters, no headings, nothing else. Just, and for me, it was just, just pour it out. Just say it from the heart what you want. This is the need. This is the impact it's going to have. And then just keep your fingers crossed that somebody that will resonate with them. And there was an amazing assessor, for want of a better word, Caroline, that she picked up on it and she just got it. And she said, wow, this could money in prisoners' pockets that's going to prevent them from coming back to prison. Yes. And then I think there was a 2-stage process. I had to come down to London and have an interview. And again, that would have been quite scary, but I was made to feel so relaxed, and it was almost felt like it was a done deal. And just give us a few more details because it's going to the panel. It was only a couple of years later when you asked me to come back and be a panelist and assess other people's applications that I fully appreciated. It is quite onerous, and just because you got through that stage, there's no guarantees. Because I think when we were on the panel, there were about 6 applications and we only put 2 or 3 through. So I felt even more, privileged.
Normally a 60% success rate at panel.
So. Okay. So it was there or thereabouts. But Caroline, she was almost like an advocate for us because it wasn't just an administrative task. She said to me, we have asked for this much. I think you should ask for a bit more because this is a great cause. And rather than just asking for that for a year, why don't you ask for 2 years of grant funding? Okay, yeah. And we did, and we got it. And it allowed us to go into the prisons and prove that concept and get the RIF name out there. And if we hadn't already had that presence with the tax refund scheme, that we were in about 50 prisons, we wouldn't have been known as well as we were when we pivoted to offer the self-employment service. So I will always be grateful for the 4, not just for that, but also the ongoing support that you provide and the access to training opportunities. Yeah, it's been brilliant. And I wish every grant application process was as straightforward and refreshing as that.
Thank you so much. The process is still almost exactly the same. The only thing that's different is that we now do the interviews online rather than so people don't London. But it's so good to hear that you've had such a good experience. We aim for all our consultants to be as good as Caroline, and the whole point is that we want it to be a collaborative process where it's the consultant is a trusted but critical friend. So she can say things to you, or he could say things to you like, are you sure you're asking for the right amount of money here? Is this really going to do what you need it to do? Should it be structured slightly different? So that you can talk it through. And then, as you say, that is exactly what they are supposed to be. Is they are supposed to be your advocate. They believe in you. They believe, and they are the one who is taking it to panel, and they're there to kind of be your protector as well. In that it doesn't to go in front of a panel. You've now sat on the panels. They're fast paced. We haven't got huge amounts of time. We have to make decisions reasonably fast. And if we were to have put you in front of the panel personally, you could be consumed by nerves, or it could become a bit of a charisma competition. So the idea is that the consultant is there to advocate for you and to kind of level the playing field. So if you've never done it before, you don't get disadvantaged. But
sure.
I mean, so no, I'm so pleased it worked so well. Before I open it up to some questions, one last one from me is, for the moment, is what does the future hold for Rift? Where are you aiming to take this? You're in 46 prisons. How many would you like to be in? What's the demand?
It's a strange time for us at the moment. A lot of people talk about strategy and have you got a strategy? And again, I did start working on a strategy a few years ago, and I had some external support. And as soon as the strategy was written, it was out of date. So, I have kind of a high-level strategy based on 3 pillars, but nothing any more concrete than that. The biggest challenge we've got is that one of our main sources of revenue for the prison service, that comes to an end in December this year because the contracts are naturally coming to an end. And even though there's a successor to that, the successor doesn't start delivery until August next year. So we've got a 7-month gap where it's going to have a significant impact on our revenue at the start of next year. So even though we scaled up quite quickly and we've got a really big team that's managing the demand, and we've been able to diversify through the Restart scheme, so we deliver not just in prisons now, we deliver to the long-term unemployed. That's going to be quite a challenging year next year. Obviously, we're working quite closely with the potential providers that are going to be delivering the new scheme from August next year. So hopefully we're going to be included in their bids and we can pick up where we've left off. But that 6 or 7 month gap, that's what's keeping me awake at night in terms of where's the money going to come from? Cash flow. Yeah, we're building up some quite healthy reserves, which will enable us to kind of prop the social enterprise up. And we're also looking at further diversification. We're doing training for construction workers, because if you work in construction, you have to be self-employed. We've been approached by a university in Dubai who want us to provide remote self-employment support and training to their students. But it's a big challenge, and I wish those way on high would actually think about the impact that has on small organisations like ours.
Yeah, where I think that's something that people just don't really understand about the social enterprise and the charity sector, is that we work on absolutely kind of minimum, like the level of fat there is in our operations is just, it's not, there isn't any, basically. So there is nothing to fall back on when something like this happens. And I think that it's something, again, that we would sort of want to try and raise more awareness of, is that you can't say, and I mean, many organisations, you sound like you're doing an incredibly, because you are adaptable and flexible and creative, job of working out how to fill these gaps, but many organisations wouldn't be able to say, to survive a 7-month hiatus, basically. And it happens, I mean, we talk to a lot of charities that work in schools, they work in healthcare, and it happens across the board when they are contracting with, and often, it's sort of payment by results contracts. But it's something that we'll try and raise more awareness of. But I would like, we've got lots of people listening who I'm sure have got some questions for you. I straight away going to Caroline Deal, who's got her hand up. Would you like to come on camera and ask a question? Hello.
Hi, everybody. And first of all, thank you to the four, Marianne, for organising these chats. It's really good. It's the first one I've been to. I don't know if you've done more before this, but it's really, really fantastic. And thank you so much to Andy for your very open comments. And it's been quite inspirational to hear your story.
Oh, thank you.
So I am the founder of a charity called the Media Trust, which I ran for far too long, about 23 years. And I left about 6 years ago. I was also founder of a TV channel called the Community Channel. When I left the Media Trust, I thought there's a gap here. There isn't support for founders of charities and social enterprises, for the actual founder, not for being a good CEO or a good manager or a good anything, really, just for that actual feeling of, when should I step down? Am I a crap founder? How do I deal with the board as the founder? All those issues. They're positive things as well. So I set up a network that up until just very recently actually has just been like a sort of a side project, really. I've been doing it through as a sole trader. I've just now set up a CIC to host it. But it's a network to support, resource and promote founders, and just to be there for founders who are thinking, eek. But also we've done podcast series and features really sort of celebrating the work of founders. So I wondered if that resonates with you as a founder, really. And you talked about the loneliness of the CEO, and I just wondered whether being a founder as opposed to an appointed CEO has been something that where on the scale are you between being super proud of being the founder, which you absolutely I hope are, because it's a great story, and where do you feel sort of, have I got founder syndrome? All the because honestly, when I set up the Social Founder Network, it was around the time that Kids Company was the shit was hitting the fan with their founder, and there was so much negative stuff about founders. A whole lot of us sort of older founders were going, "Oh my God,"
No, I thank you for your question, because it's something I didn't get a chance to touch upon. It resonates so strongly with me. I'm so proud of being a founder. I don't know how I've got in this position. I suffer from imposter syndrome terribly. I look around and think, how? And I'm blessed by the staff that I have working in the organisation, because they really complement a lot of the deficits that I have. The other added factor is that even though I report into the Rift Group board, which is that big commercial organisation, it's kind of not a lot of accountability, because we are a standalone, independent, not-for-profit social enterprise. So I have explored previously both having a mentor, and that hasn't really been successful, because the mentor routes I've gone down, it tends to be big commercial companies that want to give their staff an hour a month, and I'm generalising, but aren't really bought into the mission and the social purpose as much as I am. So the other thing I've looked at is setting up a voluntary steering group or advisory board, that at least I've got somebody to offload to and thrash around ideas with. But again, I know it sounds a bit of a cop-out, I just don't have the time.
Yeah.
I'd love 3 or 4 people just to be able to steer me and talk to.
Well, I'll put my email in the chat, and if anybody else is a founder here, please do join, because we deal with all these issues, and we're just piloting a formal mentoring scheme. Actually, we do informal mentoring, but so well done. Thank you. It's inspirational to hear your story, and I'd love to ask you more questions about the process and all the rest of it, but loads of hands up.
Thank you very much.
Rose.
Thank you so much, Caroline. Please do put your email in the chat. And Andy as well, if you are interested in finding a mentor, we might well be able to help you that too. But I'm going to go to the next question, because we've got lots. Becky Bowden, Unlock Drive.
I know, Becky.
Can you see me? Because my screen's black.
No, we can't see you.
No, I'm sorry you can't see me. I don't know why. I can't seem to do anything about it. I resonate so much with everything that you're saying, particularly at the moment, and you'll understand why. But I think as we're getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's just me, it's creating quite an unhealthy balance between my professional life and my personal life. I'm finding that I'm quite overwhelmed, because I'm almost at the top of my jug and everything's getting poured in. It's just overspilling all of the time. And I just wondered if you personally have come up with any coping strategies to separate your work from your personal life.
Thanks, Becky, and hi, nice to kind of see you, even though I can't see you. Yeah, I find that gin helps. Ow. Sorry, I just banged my foot. It's a weird one for me, because I don't know if it's that founder thing, but I'm so precious about it. I do struggle to switch off, but I'm okay with that. I quite like knowing what's going on. It does impact on, like you say, outside of work. I don't feel like I'm ever outside of work. I feel like I'm always working. The difference, Becky, I know you've got young children. My children are all grown up and left home now, so I don't have that caring responsibility. What I've negotiated with my wife, for example, on holiday, I'd constantly be working and I just couldn't switch off. So we now have an agreement that I can take my laptop, but I can only open it for 1 hour of an evening and answer any emails. And then I'm able to switch off and relax a bit more. Yeah. But I think I'm quite exceptional in respect of, yes, it completely dominates my life, but I quite enjoy it. And I'm quite, because I'm so proud of what we've done, I get a buzz from that. So it doesn't answer your question. I can't really help in terms of strategies because I don't have any.
No.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Lewis Ravenscroft, would you like to ask a question?
Hi, Andy. Hi, Mary Rose.
Hi
Thanks,
there.
everyone. Hello. So I'm the development director for the Nehemiah project. Some of you may not know what we do. So we provide home and support for men in recovery coming from prison in South London. We've got 5 houses in South London, so they come directly, the majority come directly from prison to us to get residential addiction recovery support. We've been operating for nearly 30 years in South London. So we work with a lot of men every year, and often some of those men are very much interested in self-employment because of the disclosure issues, etc. And a lot of them have got trades and very entrepreneurial and very focused and whatnot. And I also, on a personal level, feel your pain because I'm the income generator for the charity. So I have to do grant applications on a daily basis and a weekly basis. So it is painful. But going back to the residents, what we find is, they're very focused. We really appreciate your support in this because it's a minefield. We don't necessarily speak to the right people when they need support in trying to find self-employment. So that your charity would be brilliant for us.
Sure.
And we've had them doing all sorts, removal services, handymen. Some of them have got trades, some of them go into construction, all sorts of different things. But what we found is, and what do you do, or what have you helped your clients with? They get this self-employed, they get the business up and running. Especially in South London or anywhere in London, housing is the issue.
Yes.
So they can get a self-employed, job and contract or whatever, but trying to survive in London in housing, is there any solution that you found in terms of trying to help people find housing, and what other support mechanisms do you provide for your clients so you can help them into self-employment? But is there any other support that you provide for the clients when they're out and they're trying to run a business?
All of our support lasts for 12 months and it's unlimited. So we don't kind of get them to the point of trading and then walk away. So we're there long term to support them with all of those things. What we've found, certainly over the last couple of years, is originally we thought someone's got a self-employment idea, we'll come in, we'll get them to the point of trading, bish bash, all good. We received some funding to run a project across all 12 women's prisons, exploring self-employment for women, and we're about 9 months into that project now, and already we've discovered self-employment is probably the last step. There is so much more that needs to be in place first, whether it's access to their children, accommodation, support with their mental health, drug and alcohol addiction. So we're now exploring how we can create some kind of wraparound service where self-employment is the end goal and all of the other things are in place first. But in order to do that, you need the buy-in of all of those different services. And what we found is that everybody seems to work in silos and they all work in isolation and they don't talk to each other. So we're hoping as a result of this project, we can influence the government and influence the Ministry of Justice that there needs to be better coordination and better communication. And there needs to be almost a single coordinator that coordinates that whole wraparound service for that individual, because otherwise, you can't rely on probation anymore. I used to be a probation officer and I would be that gatekeeper of resources and the coordinator and the facilitator. They can't do that anymore because of high caseloads. So we need to almost reinvent the wheel as to what that support package looks like for prison leavers, because it's rubbish, Lois, as you know, it really is rubbish. I can't really comment on the accommodation aspect. We tend to signpost. We'll signpost to relevant organisations and charities that can support with that. But for us, we are moving away just from all we do is self-employment to more of the softer and more of the 360 support that an individual needs. But it's a long process.
I'll chat with you later, but obviously we offer that 360 wraparound for up to 2 years support. But obviously once they get a job, they have to move on. eventually, and
Of course, of course.
so it's always comes down to lack of affordable and appropriate housing,
Especially in London. Yeah.
in London.
Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Sorry, we're about to run out of time, but Tony, I know that you have got a question. So before we finish, Tony, would you like to get your
yes, please. Thanks for being on here, and I resonate with everything you guys were saying. Couple things. One is we've just got endorsed to do a program in HMPS, Wandsworth, and in London prisons, basically. So the idea is to accreditate offenders while they're in prison. So when they come out, it reduces recidivism. That took me a long time to figure out that word or remember it, but that basically means stop them from reoffending, recidivism. And they're really keen. They want us to go in there, and we're going to start from January. So it'd be good to connect with you. I know we don't have much time on this call, but and the lady who just spoke, I forgot her name. What's her name?
Yeah, Lois.
Lois.
Yeah.
Yes. Lois, if you could drop your email, that would be fantastic. But yeah, so that was one thing. Yeah, so the other thing was, did you say that you kind of get funding from somebody else who gets funding, but they need delivery partners? So
Exactly.
you're a delivery partner. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because we want to adopt that model, but how do you do that? How do you do that?
It's been a really difficult process, and as I said at the start, we relied on grant funding because those being a supply chain partner, they wouldn't entertain it because we hadn't got the track record or the history or the accounts. So for us, it was about proving the concept via the grant funding, showing that we can do what we do, showing the outcomes that we get and the positive impact that we have. And to be honest, you know what, Tony, it took us 2-3 years of having to do that, the real tough slog through the grant funding before we can then go out and look to be a supply chain partner for some of the big contracts. It's not
How do you find out about these big contracts?
We're on all sorts of, we signed up to every mailing list that goes,
Okay.
Contract Finder. There's something called Carly Consult that send a newsletter out every other day with all the new funding opportunities. In the prison service, there's something called, I think it's called JAGA, which has all the individual prison opportunities published. So it's just making sure that you're signed up to every possible newsletter, chat, round robin. It's a lot of it is to do with networking and who you know.
Yeah, and would you say it's worth going down that route?
We definitely recommend it, particularly one of our contracts, they give us a fixed amount every month and we have key performance targets to meet. So again, for a small organisation, knowing you've got that guaranteed income every month, it's an absolute lifesaver for us rather than relying on the spot purchase arrangements.
Got you. So my last thing, going back to my first point about us going into prisons and accrediting offenders to be referees, coaches, and table officials, is that an avenue that that you guys could would like to, I guess, do as well?
Yeah, I mean, we're on what's called the prison DPS system, which is the dynamic purchasing system or dynamic purchasing scheme. So there are all sorts of opportunities published on there. So an individual prison will say, I need a construction course, or I need, like with Becky, I need some theatre delivery, some drama, and then you can bid for that opportunity. So if you can get yourself on the prison DPS system, but also I think what I found, it's about nurturing those relationships with individual prisons. Because I don't know anything about you other than what it says in your name, and it's to do with basketball. I can't imagine and I was a prison governor myself, I can't imagine there's many prison governors sat in their desk thinking, oh, I need to commission a basketball accredited course. But if you go and talk to them, have a pitch deck, go and, just talk to them about what you can do and the impact it can have on people's lives, that's how you then promote your service and what you do and get them hooked and get them interested. It takes a lot of hard work, and a lot of it is about that networking and talking to people, showing off what you do.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much. Nice to be in touch with all of you. Also, Caroline, I'm going to email you as well. But Emma, always a pleasure. Thanks for putting this on. And Andy, great job and pleasure to meet you.
Thank you for the question.
Tony, thank you so much. London Basketball Association, everybody, is another one of our 4 charities that we've supported in the past. So they're doing amazing work. I'm sensing that there could be another, there seems to be the potential to have another conversation actually about this and about working in prisons potentially for some of our, getting more of our charities together in a separate thing. So we will look at seeing if we can do that. But Andy, I just wanted to say thank you so much indeed for taking the time to do this. We'll be putting the conversation up on our YouTube channel. So anybody, if you want to forward it to anyone or you think anyone might be interested, that will be available freely. Thank you all for such interesting questions, being really engaged panelists, watchers. We've really enjoyed hearing what your thoughts are. And yeah, Andy, once again, thank you so much for your time. What you're doing at Rift is really fantastic. We're very, very proud to be able to say that we backed you and we backed you right back at the beginning.
You were the first. Thank you.
Thank you so much indeed. Okay, have a lovely Friday afternoon, everybody. Goodbye.